Welcome to the Workology podcast, where we discuss the science and art of the workplace, gain powerful insights, resources, and perspectives on the industries of human resources and recruiting. Join your host, Jessica Miller-Merrill, chief blogger of bloggingforjobs.com, for a 45-minute in-depth and no-holds-barred look into the future of our most powerful business asset, the employee. And now, here's your host, Jessica, with this episode of Workology.
Hello and welcome to the Workology podcast. It's great to have you on a new podcast as part of the Blogging for Jobs and Recruiters Lounge blog family. I am here today with Shannon Smedstad. Can you tell us a little about you, Shannon, and what brings you to the Workology podcast?
Sure. So thank you first for having me, Jessica. I am Shannon Smedstad. I am a working mom with 15 years in the HR industry. I've got a passion for recruiting, social media, and employment branding. Currently, I serve as the employment brand director for CEB, a leading research and advisory firm. And I am a weekly contributor to Blogging for Jobs. So that's why I got here, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, today's topic is talking about how to develop an amazing career site. Personally, I believe that your career site is the heart of the employment brand. Why are career strategies so important in building your recruitment and hiring strategies?
Sure. So when you think about just kind of in general, where do people go for content these days, right? So you go to your mobile phone, your laptop, or your desktop, and you're searching for information about a particular topic, and you're probably starting off at one of the major search engines, right? So you're going to Google, you're going to Yahoo or Bing, and you're typing in the information that you're looking for. Or you've heard something about a company, you found yourself in a position where you're maybe a passive job seeker or you're an active job seeker, and you need to gather information about opportunities that are available to you. And much like a consumer, when you're looking for information on a new product or a gift to buy, you're going online, you're doing research, you're going to a site in order to get that information. The career site is that hub, right? It's that hub for all of our marketing and recruitment content and our employment brand content about our company, our firm. When we look at kind of the research that's out there, and I think we'll talk a little bit later about Potential Park. So Potential Park has said that 76% of candidates are going to prefer to apply on your career site. My company, my firm CEB, we have research that shows that after your personal networks, candidates across the globe are going to your organization's website to find out information on jobs. So that's kind of the, candidates are going there, they want information, you have to have it in a place that's packaged for them. And so when I think about the space that I work in my employment branding universe, I think of the career site as sort of my son, right? And then everything else, the print collateral, social channels, videos, job postings, these all sort of orbit around my immensely important center, i.e. the career site. Everything else that we're producing and that we're sharing and we're going to market with eventually is going to lead back to your career site, your .job site. And that's where you have a chance to captivate, inform, guide, and kind of compel your candidates to take that next action.
So your career site is the center of kind of your recruiting and employment branding universe. What advice do you have for VPs of HR or talent acquisition business leaders who are looking just to get started in rebuilding or overhauling their career site? Where should they begin?
Sure. So in my 15 years of recruiting, I think I'm now in career site redesign number 4, 5, or 6 somewhere. I've kind of lost count a little bit, but I'm currently going through one right now. And where we started was, what do we hope to achieve? What is it that we're not doing now that we'd like to be doing? What are our competitors doing? What are the areas for opportunity on the career site? So really it's doing some research, right? So mapping out what it is that we need to achieve, and then how are we going to achieve it? There are a lot of surveys that are out there. I mentioned Potential Park. I mentioned CEB a little bit. There are Job Fight. I mean, there are so many other places where you can go to get some information and start doing your research. So what is the data out there? What does the data say that job seekers are looking for? What are your competitors doing? Also, I'd say, look at non-career sites. When you look at what the best e-commerce sites are doing in order to convert shoppers into buyers, what are they doing? So looking at all of these different the trends of the web, and then looking at your own career site to identify the opportunities. I like getting feedback from recruiters. That was part of the initial process for me at CEB is, okay, looking at the recruiters, they've got that front line view into what the job seekers are saying that they want, the information that our candidates are looking for. So really asking them about where their candidates are getting information, what are they telling us about our career site, and then just kind of really going into information gathering mode, bring it all together, then synthesize it, digest it, start to prioritize it, and then that'll give you a really good framework, I think, from now how do we create that roadmap? So now that we have all of this information, we've done our research, we know what our competitors are doing, what does this mean for us? And then how do we map out that plan? Overhauling a career site is a huge endeavor. It's a massive project. So I would also say making sure that you're having the conversations with all of the different groups that you need to talk to and to collaborate with in order to move this sort of project forward. So for a VP of HR, I would say talk to your IT department as well. Talk to your head of IT and make sure that this is something that there's capacity and the talent to within your IT organization to actually undertake this sort of project. Digital marketing might be another group that you'd want to reach out to. Legal is another group you might want to reach out to. So really talking about anybody else who might have a stake in the game as well to make sure that you've got the human financial resources, the capacity, the timeline in order to start getting the project moving.
I find it really interesting that you're mentioning all these different departments. Back in the, I guess, early days of personnel or human resources, a lot of people didn't necessarily see how HR could be or should be involved with these different areas. Like you mentioned marketing, you mentioned IT, you mentioned legal. There's a lot of different moving parts. But I want to get back a little bit more to marketing. In particular, how important is marketing in your overall strategy for building a career site?
I would say that having conversations there are a couple of different places where marketing, I think, fits in. So one is from an employment brand standpoint, we need to understand our audience, our goals and objectives, and how we need to achieve and how we need to go to market with our message. From a alignment standpoint, how you align the employment brand with the consumer brand, there are conversations to be had there as well. There are some organizations that say our consumer brand is very different than our employer brand. So, consumer brand goes to market with something that is very different than what that experience would be like to actually work for that company. There are other companies that say, no, like how we go to market from a consumer brand should very closely align with how we go to market with our employer brand. And so I think you need to figure out and have those conversations with marketing to figure out where is that balance? Is everybody on the same page with that approach to begin with? So if you're going to go to market with something that's very aligned, you need to have that alignment with your consumer marketing team. If you're going to go to market with something that is separate and different from what they're presenting to consumers, then you start to have different conversations. But when I think about the work we're trying to accomplish in employment branding, I want to make sure that I have a pulse on what our consumer marketing team is doing, and then also have a pulse on what we're doing from a recruiting and talent acquisition standpoint.
You mentioned some good resources from Potential Park, JobVite, CEB. There's a lot of good information out there, and I'll just let those listeners know that we're going to put these resources within where we publish the podcast over on Blogging for Jobs. So if you just go to bloggingforjobs.com and click on the right-hand sidebar under search and just put Workology career site, you should be directed to this podcast where you can get more of the information and resources that Shannon and I are talking about today. I want to talk a little bit more about content, because you kind of alluded to that as far as what's important for job seekers to see on your career site. What's most important to include, and maybe what should recruiters avoid?
Sure. So we were talking a little bit about marketing too in that last question. And when you think about the content that you're sharing out in the marketplace, so that's essentially that your content marketing strategy, right? What is the information? What are the stories? What are you going to highlight about your organization? And I think from a content standpoint, when you can get really deeply customized content, so understanding and putting yourself in your job seeker shoes, who is your audience? What are the messages? What's the information that they're really going to latch onto? And then create content that really gets at those motivators and the drivers for your talent segments. So what makes somebody in IT tick is probably going to be rather different than the hiring that you'll do for your entry-level customer service teams, for example. So when you can really get deeply customized content within your site, creating specific, create pages and vanity URLs that lead to that specific content, I think that would be very, very high on my list of things that you should be doing. Other things as far as types of content, anyone that knows me knows I love video. I think that people are really drawn to videos. That it's a great way to highlight your company culture, showcase people, show the work environment. So videos, absolutely. I love, it's probably my favorite thing to put on a career site. When we talk about content too, visuals, like strong visuals. So photos, infographics, other information that really would give somebody a realistic sense for what it's like to spend a day in the life in your company or to have a career at your company. So I would definitely say when you think about your content marketing strategy, it's not just the words that you're putting on a web page, it's also the visuals that are going to compel someone to stay on your site. They'll compel somebody to apply, or they might repel somebody and say, oh, this isn't the place for me, and that's okay. Other things too, search functionality. When you think about, so we're talking about content, but this is a little bit different, a little sidebar here. So search functionality, people are going to your site in order to access jobs, right? They want to search, they want to apply. So I would say when you're looking at your site, don't let it be so content heavy that people can't figure out how to actually go search and apply. And I say that speaking from experience. You have to make it easy for people to access the job opportunities, particularly if you're still relying on them. If you are relying on them to apply through your ATS, you have to make it easy for them to search and apply. And then when I was preparing for the podcast, I went and looked at our Google Analytics for the career site that I manage, and I noticed that our interview toolkit is the one page on our site where visitors stay the longest. They actually stay there 4 times longer than any other page on our site. And that got me thinking. So I would encourage others who are looking at a career site, maybe redesign, or if it's just a small edits and you're sprucing it up, look at your Google Analytics. What is the page that people stay on the most? And try to figure out ways to, what is that page saying or doing or offering that other pages aren't. The interview toolkit to me says like job seekers want information that is going to help them do well in the hiring process with us. So really providing content that's meaningful to the job seeker, I think is important. And that was a lot there, Jessica. So I want to kind of go back to, you said, what is the information that maybe they should avoid?
Yep.
Stock photography of models. I have seen so many career sites using stock photography of these beautiful, beautiful people. And it's stock photography because then you see that same beautiful person on a brochure or in somebody else's career site or on somebody else's, not even a career site, just another site. So I would say steer clear of that. And then, avoid content that is over-promising, maybe unrealistic, something that's just coming from the C-suite. Make it real, make it honest, transparent, make it a place where people can read it and then also say, wow, I could, this is speaking to me. I could see myself there, or this is speaking to me and this isn't the right fit for me.
I like your suggestion about real resources and real people, because we want to give people as much information as possible to make the decision to apply, which in my mind is a buying decision. But we also want to give them enough information to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best things that I have ever done personally in my HR career was a 7-minute video sort of orientation for my new folks that were coming in for the face-to-face interview in some of my call centers, and they would really understand what it's like to sell on the phone. And we had a number of people who, after watching the video, said, this isn't really for me. And I think that is important. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because later on I'm not having to deal with having a gap or increased turnover. So the more information we give certainly is the better.
Yeah, we in that realistic job preview, I think, is important. And there's this idea of how do we persuade the best people to come to our organizations? How do we attract talent? But then I think we're also seeing a trend within employment branding where it's okay to dissuade the rest. It is okay to at CEB, we've done some research where it's moving away from mass appealing and to really brand for influence and provide this trusted guidance that allows people to make those sort of decisions.
I think there's a misnomer that when people think about maybe optimizing their career site or building an employment brand, that it's going to result in like thousands or millions more of job seekers applying at their career site. But hopefully with all this good information that you're putting out, your videos, your interview guides, and a realistic job preview, people are actually saying, this isn't for me. And they're going maybe somewhere else. In my mind, that's one of the most important things, is just being upfront and saying, hey, we work hard. Here's a little bit about our company.
Mm-hmm. Right. So everybody wanted to be this great place to work, and we're hiring, and come work here. It's kind of like this open door, come one and come all. We're hiring message, but that's probably, is that the right message for your organization? You have to determine that, I think, for your own firm and your own talent acquisition strategy. But I know for me personally, when I look at the things that I'm working on now, I definitely want to have more of this, of content and a message that is going to be more transparent and honest and influential, and say, like, this is what you can expect here. Here's what it would be like to work in this particular job community. Here are the challenges of this role, and have more of those open conversations.
Yeah, if it's a suit and tie kind of place, you want to present that, because maybe that kind of buttoned up environment, a little conservative, isn't for anyone. But equally important, I think, is also sharing if it's the opposite of that. And one company that I believe has done a good job of that is Rackspace. And they've had an employment brand out there for a while. But what's interesting is if you just go to YouTube and put in Rackspace, employees shoot videos there all the time. So it really gives the employee or the candidate a sense of what the environment is like. And not everybody wants to be in casual t-shirt and jeans kind of place. They have a slide in their offices in San Antonio, and that's not the right place for everyone. So I think it's important for candidates to make the decision before they formally apply.
Right. And the career site is such a great place for that, because where are people going for content? Where are they going to learn more and to do that research? They're coming back to your career site to get that sort of information. So, it all kind of, in that universe, that employment brand universe, you go from that Rackspace YouTube channel. Most likely that individuals then, if they're compelled and they like what they see, they're going to come back to the career site to see what more information is out there. And this is a place that I'm now compelled, I want to apply.
We've had a previous guest on Workology podcast, was just Carrie Corbin, and she talked to us a little bit about mobile. We talked about SMS, but I want to talk about mobile in the context of your career site. How is it different than just a run-of-the-mill career site that we're seeing, and maybe why would having a mobile site be important?
Yeah, so I think that so you've got your career site experience when you go to your desktop or your laptop and you're getting this full site experience. Now, we've seen data from the job boards and job aggregators that 30 to 40%, if not more, of their traffic is actually coming through a mobile device. And so mobile device for me would be a smartphone, mobile phone, or tablet device. And so that screen size, right, considerably smaller than your desktop or laptop. So to take all of that full site experience and push it down into a small handheld device is going to be awkward, cumbersome. It's not going to be thumb friendly that mobile users are used to. So having a mobile site takes your desktop experience and sort of like this sweetened condensed version of it so that it's more accessible from anywhere. And the mobile site, I think that there's mobile responsive, so that based on the size of the screen, the technology within your site already knows, like, I need to shrink down, I need to condense and kind of reformat so that somebody can interact with me. And then there are mobile apps that you could develop and have job seekers download. I think for purposes of our conversation, we'll just focus on the mobile responsive. And I think one of the reasons that it is so important to have a mobile, there are a couple of reasons why it's important to have mobile. So one, people are on the go constantly. If you have a campus presence, are your campus millennial hires sitting in front of a laptop or a desktop all day? No, they're going from class and to events and meetings, and they're all over the place. So if you want to have access to them, you need to be where you're most accessible, in their pocket, right, on their phone. And so people in general, you're commuting, maybe you're on the bus, you're on the train going to work, you've got your phone with you, you're sitting, you're waiting, there's idle time, you've got your phone with you. And so to be able to get your message in front of an audience that's on the go is important. There have also been some conversations, and there's articles online about Google and their search and their algorithms and giving more precedence or more weight to sites who are mobile friendly. So there is an SEO reason for wanting to or going mobile as well. So it's accessibility, SEO, and then it just kind of makes sense these days that it's 2014. Like, let's go there. Let's have this mobile site. And that's one of the things I'm working on right now too, is how do we take our site and make it mobile responsive? I mentioned, like, millennials, they're on the go. So having information on a mobile is going to be important to tap into that audience, but not just millennials. I mean, I think about just my life in general and trying to manage, and I've got my desktop and my laptop and my phone. I mean, we're just in this world now where we're on this multiple device, kind of, that's just how we live and that's how we work. So mobile, how is it different? When we have been redesigning for a responsive, we have to sort of give hierarchy to the content. So when you go from a full site down to a smaller site, you're going to lose some of the features, you'll lose some of the content. So that's a conversation to have with your IT team or whoever you're working with. If you go from a full site experience to a mobile, what are you okay with losing?
Awesome. Well, we have more resources about mobile, specifically when it comes to your career site and just your mobile strategy overall, on a previous podcast. And if you just Google Workology and Carrie Corbin, it'll pull it up and you can take a look and more in-depth conversation about that. But we're going to take a little bit of a reset here as we kind of hit the halfway stretch in our talk with Shannon Smedstad, and friend of mine, and actually has been a longtime contributor to Blogging for Jobs. You're listening to the Workology podcast by Blogging for Jobs, and today's topics is building an amazing career site. It seems right now that we're kind of at a tipping point when it comes to career sites, and Shannon's been sharing with us a lot of interesting resources and tidbits and suggestions. Companies want to attract candidates, but not detract candidates from spending time. It's the reason we're creating videos and we take the time to build a career blog as recruiting teams and talent acquisition leaders. Even still, a few years ago, I remember hearing a company speak about their candidate anti-attraction strategy, making it so difficult to apply for a job that we're decreasing the number of applications. And that could be by just making like a displeasing site or a very long application process. Sometimes assessments can take 45 minutes plus, which makes it extremely hard to actually apply anywhere, desktop, mobile, laptop, wherever. Why, Shannon, do you think the shift has focused or has shifted as we are more focused on creating a better experience for the candidate? And maybe why should our listeners care about having an appealing site that we're spending time on? You talked about some of those reasons, but do you believe that having a great site is going to make increased numbers, inflated candidates who maybe aren't qualified for jobs applying to your site?
So I haven't seen the numbers where all of a sudden it's become over manageable just because of the career site. I think that if there are a couple of different things I think. So one, there is a place for assessments online, right? So if you're somebody who's really interested and you're eager and you want to be a part of a particular company and that's part of their process, that's something that you'll have to carve out time and make sure that you're in a place where if it's easier to do it from your desktop or your laptop, that you do that if you want to work there. But this isn't a conversation about assessments. I think it's more like the career aesthetics and developing a site that's fresh, intuitive, and clean, and one that makes it compelling and easy to navigate and access information. I think that's what the user experience is about, whether it's a career site or a consumer site or a social network, right? We want to be able to get at the information that we need when we need it in a way that's easy. And so when a job seeker or a candidate is compelled to finally come to our site and get that information, they've come to our corporate career site, we want to make it easy for them to access all of that. And I think that we should care, or you asked, why should we care about making a site appealing and one that job seekers want to spend more time on? I think we want them to spend time on our site to decide whether or not the organization is the right fit for them. So when I think of the career sites that I've worked on in the past, so CEB and also Geico.jobs, we want to give people the relevant information to them that's easy to digest, it's easy to take in, and then help guide them to either self-select in or out. And do you want to make it difficult so people just give up on the process and leave? I think that we all, if you can go back to your Google Analytics and talk to your web team or whoever's managing that, look at your bounce rates, look at your application, look at that full funnel. So how many impressions is your site getting, your traffic? What are your conversions to ATS? What is the start to finish rate on your application? And if you start looking at all of those numbers, you can start putting that picture together for where there might be opportunities to streamline the process, to make it easier, to make candidates get through the process and not drop off. I think candidate drop off is a problem for many organizations. But then I think that there's also, too many applications from unqualified people coming in. If you take your career site and use that as an opportunity to really provide the most meaningful, realistic information to help influence the right people to apply, I don't think that, I think that's moving in the right direction. I don't think it's going to all of a sudden, just because your career site is easier to use, that you're all of a sudden going to be inundated with people that you can't handle. I think that there are a lot of other factors that could possibly play into that.
I agree with you. It reminds me of kind of the general idea where people think when you post on a job board, the fear is similar with a career site that you're going to get thousands of candidates who aren't qualified for your job posting. But hopefully the information that you're putting out there helps people make a decision. And I do believe that most people are wanting to apply for jobs that they're qualified for. They aren't just going in and mass applying. That takes a lot of time and effort.
It does take a lot of time and effort. And, are there people that are out there that are just going to mass apply? Sure. Is that the majority of people? I don't know. I'm sure we could probably get another guest on the podcast to talk about that. But I think that most professionals are going to apply for jobs that they're interested in, that they feel qualified for. And if you look at your job postings and the content, if you're saying I'm getting inundated with unqualified people, well, go back and look at the message. Are you providing enough context for somebody to make a decision? Are you mass appealing and just saying, like, we're hiring, come work here, we're going to take everybody? Or is that message really conveyed in a way that says, this is really who we're looking for and this is really what it's like to work here?
We alluded to this earlier, and we mentioned Potential Park, a human capital research firm. And they found with some research that they released earlier this year that complicated applicant tracking systems or online application processes like your ATS can result in 48% of candidates abandoning the application process. And research from the study can be found on Blogging for Jobs. Just enter Potential Park 2014 on the search box on the right-hand side of the page. I'll have this also listed as a resource section when we publish the podcast here on bloggingforjobs.com that is going to list more information and just kind of the things that Shannon and I have been talking over the last 30 minutes about career sites and hiring. Given Shannon, given the importance of a career site according to Potential Park's most recent research, who do you think should be responsible for management of your career site? Do you think it should be internal or managed by an external agency or the IT department?
So I can only speak from my own experience. Since 2004 or so, I've been in roles where my organizations have managed career sites internally, right? So the human resources department, or now at my current firm, it's our global communications department, oversee the career site experience and the content and the message. And based on that, I mean, I feel like I've been very fortunate to have had and have amazing IT teams to work with from a technical standpoint and looking at the user experience, from content management systems and ATS integration. So again, I can only speak from my own experience, but from a content standpoint, I feel like because I'm internal and I'm working with internal teams, that we have a really good pulse on the organization and the culture and the roles and the type of person and the competencies that we're looking for. Me personally, I don't think I could imagine kind of cheering from the bleachers and not being out on the field, right? Like I want to be in that and working on it. But regardless of whether it's your internal team or if you decide to work with an external agency, I think that, or maybe it's a hybrid of the two, I think somebody needs to own it, right? So somebody needs to look at the career site and say, we're going to own this because it's important to our overall talent acquisition strategy. And it needs to be active ownership with a pair of eyes looking at it regularly and maintaining it regularly. So it might come down to your organization has the internal talent, has the internal capacity, whether it's IT, marketing, talent acquisition, global communications, a combination of different teams. So if you have the capacity, like get your teams, move things forward. If you don't have the internal talent, or if you are yet to identify that talent, maybe working with an agency is a good way to kind of jumpstart your efforts until you can build up your internal competencies to do it yourself.
Bottom line, I think that your applicant tracking strategy along with your career site is not just any longer an HR effort. There's a lot of different people who have skin in the game. So it's really important to maybe bring in the subject matter experts in these different departments to help you and work all together collaboratively.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've never coded in Java or .NET or I've done a little HTML, but I don't know all of the technical nuances to make things work. But if you're working on a team and everybody has this shared vision and we're all moving the ball down the field together, I mean, that's when the magic happens. That's when the great things for career sites and even larger with employment branding, that's when it happens.
A lot of football references in this podcast.
I'm getting ready for a game this weekend with my husband. 'Tis the season.
It is. Well, let's switch a little bit to social networking, because that seems to be, I mean, I just got back from the HR Tech conference and there was lots of tweeting and social referral platforms and social media. In your own experience, how do you see social networks playing into the functionality of your career site? And more importantly, do you think they're a good source to drive applications?
So, first, I'll say, I'm someone who plays in the social space. I love it. I've met some really incredible people. And I think that social networks are a great way to bring in fresh content into career sites, which often feel kind of static, right? They often kind of feel like, oh, they're just these pages that have been up there forever. But then you get these social feeds, and now you've got fresh, live, real-time content that's coming into your career site. So a live Twitter feed, or if you've got a career blog, and you can have the most recent posts kind of feeding into your career site. LinkedIn has a plugin where individuals can go to your career site and they can see who they might be connected to at your firm, so that they may maybe ask for a referral. So I think there are a lot of different ways that you can look at the social networks that your organization may be active on, and then identify opportunities to link up your social channels with your career site, right? Because we talked about how, in my view, the career site's the sun, everything else is orbiting around. So how do you take those pieces and create that direct link back to your career site? I think that doing so really gives somebody that insider's view on what it's like to work at your company. Like, are you going to take your Instagram pictures and put them on your career site real time? Probably not. But could you take those Instagram photos and feed them to Facebook, and then Facebook feeds over to your career site? I mean, it's just a way to kind of continuously keep content flowing. So the second part of that is, you asked if social networks are a good source for candidates. And I think that the short answer is yes, right? So social media is, I think, a great place to bring in your talent acquisition brand ambassadors and your influencers. For example, at Geico, when I worked there, we had 20 recruiters who were on Facebook, and we had a dozen or so that were on Twitter. And so we had our brand ambassadors, our recruiters, having conversations with candidates in the social space in order to drive applications and to initiate and engage with job seekers, so that we could, through our conversations with them, talk to them about why the organization may be a good fit for them. I think social media is also a good source for candidates, particularly when we think about millennials and campus recruiting or early careerist recruiting. Millennials use social media more than any other generations to learn about employers. So when you think about your overall talent acquisition, talent attraction strategy, I think that being on social is a good place to kind of shine your brand, put your message out there in order to attract talent. I recently shared an article on my LinkedIn profile from cgma.org that said that 54% of respondents to a CEB survey said that social media sites can be effective tools for recruiting and reaching quality candidates. And that 54% is actually up 14 percentage points from last year. So companies are reporting that, yes, social is effective and social can help you reach quality candidates. I've also seen, from my own experience, social media to be a great place to increase just overall awareness of job opportunities. There are tools and vendors out there that can help you broadcast your jobs. I don't think that should be your only social strategy, but I think that I've seen it be an effective part of an overall social recruiting or social media for talent acquisition strategy. And if you can take that kind of sharing your jobs and turn those into conversations with candidates, I mean, yeah, that's definitely a great way to drive applications and as well as hires for many companies.
You've done some cool stuff over on Facebook, and I always like to talk about it because I think that it doesn't have to cost a lot of money to use social media. Can you talk to us about what you did over at Geico with Facebook?
Sure. So while at Geico, we hosted 3 virtual career fairs right on the Geico Careers Facebook page. And so we were looking at ways to engage candidates. Geico has 16 major locations across the country. How do we get all of these recruiters kind of in one place to talk about the organization? So we were looking at virtual career fair platforms. And I'm looking at the Facebook page thinking, there's got to be a way. We have a captive audience here. We've got 20 recruiters on Facebook. How do we connect all of these dots? And so the team there was great when I had asked, like, hey, will you guys try try this with me. And we marketed the virtual career fair. And for 2 days, it was open, and we just opened the page up, and we had traffic was through the roof. Our recruiters took turns kind of manning an hour or two on Facebook, and we had conversations with individuals right on our wall, or people would direct message us. We had many candidates would friend a recruiter during the length of time of the career fair so that they could have initiate a one-on-one chat with a recruiter. And then we were able to see traffic from Facebook to the career site. And then we had a referral source code in the ATS. And we asked all of the recruiters to just keep a really close eye on candidates that may be coming through, as well as hires that they may have made from the career fair. And the first 2 career fairs, I know that the organization realized hires from that. I do not know about the third because of timing of my departure.
No, I think it's important just to kind of think outside the box a little bit.
Absolutely.
And I always love to share with people about what you were doing, because I think that it's really unique.
And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was low cost, relatively low effort. We were able to share the splitting up the time so that it wasn't we weren't putting a lot of pressure on one person to be away or traveling. It wasn't 2 days out of the office. It was an hour at their desk. So it was, when you can have something that's low cost, low effort, and potential high reward, I'm all about it.
Last thing I'll mention before we head out is Geico has an interesting strategy with Facebook, in that their recruiters or members of the HR team have Geico only Facebook accounts. So you're not necessarily chatting with people on your personal Facebook account. They have a specific Geico one, which when you've talked about that in the past, when I've heard you speak, it's always interesting how excited people are about being able to separate the two. But I think when you're in a live chat situation with a virtual career fair, it's really nice to be able to have that segmentation.
Absolutely, I would agree.
Well, I want to wrap this up here and just say thank you, Shannon, for coming on the Workology podcast and talking with us today about career sites. It's been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Sure. So this is the Workology podcast, where we discuss the science and art of the workplace, HR, and recruitment. Before we head out, Shannon, where can people go to learn more about you?
Sure. So I tweet at Shannon Smedstad. And then you can also search bloggingforjobs.com for more information on employment branding and career sites and articles that I write. And you can certainly feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Shannon has a lot of amazing content, some of our most popular over on Blogging for Jobs. So a lot of really great resources and information about career sites and employment branding. Thank you again, Shannon. You can check out bloggingforjobs.com to get more information and resources about this podcast and listen to future and previous episodes of the Workology podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller-Merrill provided by Total.